Hunter Circles acknowledges the Awabakal and Warramai people, the traditional owners of the land where we work and live. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land.
Hi, my name is Lee Crichton. We are here today to honour and remember the people with disability who lived and died in institutions. We stand with the Council for Intellectual Disability, who have advocated for over 40 years to end disability institutions in New South Wales. CID make 5 points. 1. It is time for the New South Wales Government to address the wrongs of the past. 2. Talk to people with disability and their advocates about how to remember institutions and honour the lives of people with disability who lived there. 3. To make sure the history and experiences of people are shared. 4. Think about whether our country is currently repeating mistakes of the past in the way people with disability are treated, especially in group homes. 5. They say there has never been a government apology or offer of compensation for people with disability who were in institutions and exposed to violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation. Let's hear from Jim Simpson, Senior Advocate at the Council for Intellectual Disability.
As far back as 1980, we at the Council for Intellectual Disability were advocating for the closure of the institutions in which so many people with intellectual disability lived. Countless people with intellectual disability had no real choice about where they spent their lives. We were driven by the conviction that it was profoundly wrong to segregate people with intellectual disability away from society. People with intellectual disability had the right to live fully included lives in the community. Our views here were supported by the landmark Richmond Report of 1983, the Disability Services Act 1992, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006, and the Disability Inclusion Act as recently as 2014. We acknowledge the complexities in all of this. Saying that institutions have always been inherently wrong is challenging for families who often had no option for their sons or daughters and who were following professional advice at the time about what was best. There were also many staff who did their best to support people in very challenging environments. However, we have seen over and over the profound negative impact of institutionalisation on the lives of people with intellectual disability. Now that the New South Wales institutions have closed, it is vital that we don't see this as the end of the battle for inclusion and full citizenship. As the evidence at the Disability Royal Commission illustrated, there remains so much to do before we can be satisfied that people with disability have the same life opportunities that others of us take for granted. We must also make sure we remember and continue to learn from the past. We must consider how best to honour the lives of people who lived in institutions. We must do this in decisions about the future use of the institutional properties and about how best to acknowledge and respond to the harm that so many people suffered.
Now, let's hear from Robert Kim. Hey Rob, you doing well?
Hi. I am Robert King. I am here today to tell you my story. I was born in Cessnock in 1957 to my devoted parents, Lola and Arthur. I was born with cerebral palsy. There were not very many supports for children with disability around the time that I was born. My grandmother, Sadie, would visit me every day to help. When I was 4 years old, I started at the local Cessnock Crippled Children's School. My little sister Jennifer was born when I was 8 years old. Mum likes to tell us stories about how we used to roll around together on the floor when Jennifer was a baby. She also says that whenever Jennifer was crying, I would say go. 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 I was telling her to go and look after the baby. Mum says she knew from early on that I was very kind and very caring about others. I grew up in a loving home with my family and I have good memories from my childhood. But when I was 11 years old, everything changed. I was moved into the North Ryde Psychiatric Centre. I was very frightened, very lonely and very sad to be away from my family. I lived with hundreds of other children with disability. There were also wards for adults. It was very hard for my family to visit me because I was living so far away. When I was 16, I was moved to the Pete Island Mental Hospital. I still have very bad nightmares from this time. After that, I was moved to the Stockton Centre and stayed there for nearly 50 years. With hundreds of other people with disability. Bad things happened to me. I saw bad things happen to lots of other people with disability too. I did not get any choice in where I lived. I did not get any choice in who I lived with. I did not get any choice in who supported me. There were many times I was frustrated and angry. I had no privacy, no freedom, no one who listened to me, no say in what happened to me, no control over what happened in my life. Most decisions about me were made by other people. There were some good staff. There were some really bad staff who were mean and cruel. All my adult life I wanted to move out. I wanted to live in a home of my own. But no one listened to me. No one helped me. Now I live in my own apartment in the city. By myself. This has been my dream my whole life and I love it. I am the king of my castle. I spend lots of time with my family and I have a big circle of support. I have a very good friend at the local food works, Darren. I visit Darren every day to say hi. I am setting up my own film company and saving money for a van so I can travel around the country. Living in institutions is something that I can never forget. It affects me every day. I still have lots of things I want to work on. I want my story to be heard. I want the government to stand up for people who used to live in institutions and make things better for the future for all people with disability.
Rob's story is very important. We also stand on the shoulders of giants like Kim Walker, who like Rob spent her childhood in disability institutions. Kim was a leading advocate for the closure of institutions so all people with disability could live full lives in the community. Kim said, "I want everyone to know what life has been like for people like me. I want people to remember what happened to us, how we were shut away and forgotten. And I want people never to forget this. And I want to make sure that what happened to me will never happen to anyone again." Kim began the fight for the rights of people with disability that we are still fighting for today, to be full citizens included in our community. Kim showed us that our voices and our stories matter.
One of the prime inspirations for the work that CID and I personally have done in relation to institutions over all these decades has been the life of Kim Walker. I first got to know Kim when we worked together at the Intellectual Disability Rights Service right back in the 1980s. Kim had a long relationship with Council for Intellectual Disability, including being a board member and ultimately becoming a life member. Sadly, Kim died too young. But before Kim died, she wrote a book. She wrote her autobiography about her life. She told us the story of her life to explain why no child should grow up in an institution and separated from family. Kim's story provided a powerful case for what she always wanted: all disability institutions to be closed and all people with disability to have a good life in the community.
It's really important that every human being have a life like everybody else. It's really important that the government and policy makers listen to people who have been there or who are there and so forth, that everyone has the right to have a quality life. Everyone has a right to have family. Everyone has a right to be heard and be listened to and be seen like everybody else.